What's up, guys? I'm Jess, and this is John, and today we're going to be discussing the Conservative Party, the legacy of Boris Johnson, and what that means for the country, what that means for the party, reflecting on what Boris Johnson did in his time in office. John, do you think Boris should have resigned?
I've been calling for Boris's resignation probably for at least 2 months now. His he's been a burden to the country, to be honest. His party's been falling apart since the first no confidence vote, which was I don't know how many, probably a month ago now. And really throughout, he's never really stood for anything conservative in the first place.
I think it's just such a shame because I don't know about you, but I remember when Boris got elected. At that moment, I was a member of the Labour Party, actually, funnily enough. But I still had this hunch that this was good, and he was still a better candidate than Jeremy Corbyn. You know, he was the man who's going to deliver on Brexit. He had charisma, whereas all these other, like Cameron, Blair, Brown, they're all like quite stale. You know, he was a new face in politics. It's just been such a letdown. And you can't help but wonder what it would have been like if lockdown didn't happen, or if we had good times of economic prosperity rather than the cost of living crisis. I think, although it's not really fair to judge politicians on the good times because it's easy to thrive during the good times, I think a better measurement is during the tough times. And Boris Johnson has unfortunately proved that he doesn't really stand for much.
He stood for the patriotic side. He had a lot of charisma about him. You could get behind him. People liked him because they'd seen him on things like Top Gear. If you remember when he
He
was
was on
on that.
Top Gear.
Yeah, he was on Top Gear once.
I've never seen that.
It's things like that. He was either Coronation Street on it or EastEnders. He was a familiar face to people. He stood for the sort of policies where people could get behind them, and really he stood for what people thought was the future. It's a real shame about how far he's fallen. And as you were saying about him, it's very easy being the strong member at this, being a strong leader at good times. So until probably about February of 2020, I imagine, because then in March we went into lockdown. That was a time where he showed in that time before he showed a lot of promise. After that, he sort of showed the weakness and that maybe he didn't know exactly what was going on at the time. And I think that shutting down the country was a terrible idea in the first place. But it's been a real shame because he had so much promise.
It has been a real shame. It's just, I'm thinking, who is there to replace him? Again, I think it's going to be like a very boring politician who probably won't have much vision. They'll be either like, quite neoliberal or neocon, and it's just like, who really wants that?
100%. I mean, I was a fan of Liz Truss for a while. I thought she was hopeful, but I thought that she had some hope behind her. But due to some of the decisions with Ukraine, I mean, I understand why we're there and I understand what's going on, but when you're in a cost of living crisis, is Ukraine really top priority? Probably not. So who else is there? You got Dominic Raab, okay, who failed with the Afghanistan issues with the Taliban. You've got Michael. Well, Michael Gove's always been roundabout there, but as it's sort of been proven, he can't really be trusted. With other things like who else is there? Priti Patel.
She has no chance.
No, I don't even know what to make of her. She has a really good idea and then messes it up, and then has a really good idea and then messes that up. It's like she's the brains behind an operation, but she can't actually deliver on it.
Yeah, all talk, no action. I think the thing
Yeah.
is with Priti Patel and most notably Rishi Sunak, I think they're too close to the Johnson administration. Like, if you think of Johnson's government, Johnson's cabinet, the first person you're gonna think of, other than Boris Johnson, is Rishi Sunak, and you'll relate him to the cost of living crisis, to lockdown. They made him the face of the first few months of COVID. I don't know if you remember, but he gave a lot of speeches. And at first, it was a sign of like leadership. It was a sign of like maybe they're trying to get him to be the next leader. But I think that's changed a lot. I also think it's kind of sad the way Boris Johnson has had to go. That he's not left with dignity, you know. And again, he had so much potential, I think. And I think a lot of people, there's such a hype around backing Boris, and to see that slowly decline, it's just so depressing.
As we said, he had so much potential. And one by one, his cabinet have just walked out. I mean, 38 people walked out of his cabinet, I think, just yesterday. 38 people. That's absolutely huge, especially when you've got your Chancellor, you've got your Education Secretary walked out today, I think. Sajid Javid, he walked out yesterday. Michael Gove was sacked, probably because he probably said that he was about to walk out. It's not even small people, it's really big names.
Yeah.
And they've all just walked out at once.
I don't see where we're going to go after this. I don't see the Conservative Party's vision. But it's like, who's going to replace them also? You know, reform, reclaim. Reform came from the Brexit Party in UKIP, which, again, I think third parties are most useful either in coalition or single issue. If you look at UKIP, if you look at the SNP, you know, they have a goal. Whereas I don't see any emerging parties at the moment to replace the Conservative Party. What I think is more likely to happen, the Conservative Party are known as a broad church, that we have multiple different ideologies. And as I've began to be more involved with party politics, with people within the party, it's like there's quite a bit of bitterness. There's factions. There's lots of factions. There's the neoliberals, there's the libertarians, there's the more like traditional orthodox conservatives. It's like a Venn diagram. You know, they all have some things in common with each other, but I think the differences are so obvious, and I think that's creating a divide, because at least with the Labour Party, it's more like you've got the radical side, the socialists, and then you've got the more Blairite moderates. Whereas with the Conservative Party, you've got the moderates, but you've also got the more like socially conservative, and then you've got like the more capitalist aspects. And it's like it's hard to balance all three of them out.
It's about the sort of faction that you want to move forward. I mean, I've heard Penny Mordaunt, she's a pretty big candidate. In fact, I think that because that no one's particularly heard of her as much as, you know, your Rishis and your Priti Patels and your Michael Goves, and Jeremy Hunt as well, forgot to mention him, because these people are, you know, always around the party. No one's really heard of Mordaunt. I think that she's what the party needs, because she's the face of a new start. She's the face of something new, and that's what you need. Even back in 1979, Margaret Thatcher came in as something new. She brought promise. She brought new ideas and new ways of coming about.
We went alive during the Thatcher era, so perhaps we have more of a romanticised view, I certainly think I do, of Thatcher coming in, like storming in and showing conviction, showing everyone who's boss. When I don't think that was. It might have been true, it might not, I don't know. I just have history books and people's interpretations to rely on. But she wasn't as radical at the start. And we have to keep that in mind. It's not as revolutionary as we might think it is. And so it is sort of hard to pinpoint what we need in a leader. I think vision is necessary. I think ideology is necessary. I don't like pragmatism as an ideology in itself. I think you do need to have some ideological backbone behind that. You know, pragmatism is being pragmatic about where your goal is, not being pragmatic about the goal itself. And the Conservative Party would need to realise that, because we've fallen into the trap of Labour. I said on the video yesterday, 8-seat majority, what Conservative policies have we received? A decade in government, what Conservative policies have they actually put through? Because if you look at Blair, look how much he's put through. Look how many progressive policies he put through with the Equalities Act, Communications Act, even like a minimum wage law, all these stuff that's transformed the British economy over the last decade of Conservative rule. What actually have they done? What Conservative policy have they actually put through? They've not been pro-free market. We've had austerity, we've had lockdown, we've had all these stuff. They've not done anything socially conservative. They just do this weird, virtue signalling about diversity inclusion officers. And it's all words, it's no action. You want to see action. Same with, like we said before, Priti Patel. What's she actually done? The Rwanda plan was a complete failure. It's ridiculous. They have an 8-seat majority. They have had a decade in power. And what have they done? But on that note, thank you so much, John, for
Very much.
joining me on this video. Check out, John, what's your Instagram again?
My Instagram at the minute has changed. It's JG_politics. Go and give it a follow. I post virtually every single day, so give it a look.
Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to support us, please consider liking, subscribing and commenting. Let me know what you think. Are you glad Boris is gone? Who do you think will replace him? Let me know in the comment section. Thank you so much. Goodbye.